JB here. Wednesday, October 1st, 2025, 9:16 a.m. Welcome to the fourth quarter. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures down about 0.4%, NASDAQ down about 0.5%. Oh man, the government shutdown, day one, right? T minus 1 day. Uh, Incessant headlines. I guess the best way I can describe it. I mean, every time this comes, it depends on what else is going on in the market and in the world. But it seems like because there's not as much going on, just littered with headlines about the government shutdown, the impacts, the museums, the TSA, uh, the data, right? All these different things that you like. If you read the headlines, you think the futures would be down 1.5% here this morning. To me, I don't want to call it a non-event, right? I think that would be naive, I guess would be the word. There has to be some incremental issues if this prolongs, maybe 2 weeks, a week, somewhere in there, because right now you're like furlough, right? So some of these employees that work, they just won't get paid, right? So I mean, we'll see how that. It's funny the politicians get paid, but arguments for other days. But now it's all eyes are on the jobs report on Friday, and some folks are saying that the jobs report data won't come out if the government is shut down. It doesn't look like that's the case, but there will be ramifications for CPI data or inflation data. That likely won't come out if the government shutdown continues for the next couple of weeks up to that data. It's probably going to get pushed back. I think the one example was 2013, and that data was pushed back 2 weeks. I have to go and look at the exact time frame of that, but uh, it seems like every data piece that comes out over the last couple of years is the most important. The most important jobs report, the most important CPI data, the most important GDP number. So every data piece is always important. So the people construe this as the economy is showing signs of slowing down. It's very important we get the inflation data. Blah 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 blah. But we'll see how this all plays out. I think give it a couple of days. Maybe this will be a week long situation. The posturing will end. There'll be some kind of either an extension or a deal, and then we move on to the next market fodder, the next headline, the next catalyst for market downside. So anyway, we're talking about this last 2 days now. The quarter four performance, historically the best performing quarter of the year, the fourth quarter, up on average 3%. Over the next 3 months, 74% probability of the markets closing higher in Q4. So all good things. And we'll see how all these everything plays out with the tariffs, right? At some point, the tariffs are going to take hold, and we haven't really seen that. So what will be the next catalyst? All right, so now just quick, that's overall, just quick on the SPY 660 to 667. That's kind of been the trading range. Yesterday, we had a 0.3% trading range till 1:30. We're chopping around 661, 663, 661, 663, and then boom. At 1:30, it's like someone either hit the buy button or someone stopped hitting the sell button, and we just ran from 661 all the way up to 666 by 3 o'clock, chopped around, closed at highs. And we'll see what happens here today. Is it going to be one of those red to green days? Are we green yet? Or, are we going to finally have some kind of substantial pull? I'm somewhat in cautious mode. You saw it, and I'll talk about it in a second in regards to getting some positions this week. I think there's some names I might pull regardless of what the market does. So even if the market finds footing, I think some names, especially in the chip AI space, might just have some profit taking and pressure. So I'll continue to look to play the names like that. If we do break 660 on the SPY, I'll look for some other names for hedges, right? So the SQQ calls, things like that. All right, it's kind of overall market. Quick on individual names. First, I'll bring up Reddit, and it was like a matter of time. When Reddit IPO'd, you had, I think it's Hedgeye, was a big short. The stock's like a $10 stock, whatever, and then you don't hear a peeps from them anymore. And then there's been a lot of talk over since its IPO in regards to its viability, right? It's just a forum. It's like the chat room taken to the future. Is what moat do they have around their business? And it turns out the user is the moat. And just like Google, 12 months ago, or maybe less than that, people were talking about Chat GPT and all these other assistants and AI just being the thing that's finally the nail in the coffin of Google. They've been saying it for Reddit, and Reddit was $80 back in April. They thought that recession's coming, advertising spend's going down. This is it. This is the end game for Reddit, and it turned out not to be the case. And their earnings were monster earnings. And similar to what happened with Google, and Google had great earnings, and not only was AI not the nail in the coffin for Google, it actually turned into be a possible tailwind. And then you still have to get the similar story here with Reddit, but it's like they still don't believe that Reddit can exist in the future if AI exists. And so this morning there's reports, and you can't even find the exact. There's no Bloomberg breaking news or what have you. There's just reports out that ChatGPT is removing Reddit as part of their sources for some of their chat for sourcing for searches, right? So supposedly meaningful enough that it might cause user growth and revenue issues for Reddit. Which again, there's no substantiation behind any of those rumors or speculation, but you can see how I guess you would say concerned some are because you see the reaction of stock all the way under $200 just a little while ago. So I look at it as an opportunity. They were wrong on Google for a while. I think they continue to be wrong on Reddit. Thankfully not in a position here today, so they're allow me to be a little selective on possibly getting some later dated strikes because I think that this all gets shaken off. It trades back into the mid 200s and beyond in the coming weeks. So we'll see how it shakes out at the open, all the way down to 197. So maybe that'd be a big spot if it does come back down at the open. If it holds there, maybe I'll look for some lotto calls. On the flip side, if it finds some strength, 215 or so, I'll look for some calls to maybe do a red to green kind of situation. So just funny to watch to see. It's not even funny, right? Because to me, I think when you have misguided folks who think that Reddit's just not going to exist, it creates opportunity. And when when you take a look at a name like Reddit, it's major opportunity because it's so volatile. It's it's could be a $300 stock, or there's people who think it's a zero at some point. So all right, so that's Reddit. Um, Yesterday morning, GameStop back over 27 at the open, and then it seems like it's been stuck there. Seems like it's heavy, I guess is the best way of describing the 27s. My October strikes, when I got them, I had plenty of time, but as the days keep ticking, less time, and as time ticks close to the expiration, premiums are going to come out. So I didn't want to see the premiums evaporate, so went and closed the rest of my October 30 strikes for some profits. Already had freebies, and I'm looking at the Novembers, but makes sense, or for me at least, makes sense to be a little patient here. Maybe if it breaks over 2750, then I'll go out and get the November 40s. Surprising enough, and we'll see what happens here this morning. Bitcoin's up 2% here this morning. At some point, when does this start to move at least in lockstep with Bitcoin? Because it's not even moving in lockstep with anything. So that's GameStop. I'll revisit that one. And then I start sprinkling some more spec hedge put positions. Broadcom and Oracle both have similar chart setups. And you look, it's like they're slowly bleeding. And it's like there's a Band-Aid on the wound. And at some point, maybe that Band-Aid stops the bleeding, doesn't stop the bleeding, and then it just accelerates. So you take a look at some gap fills, and Broadcom has its gap fills from earnings. I think it's 305 and change. Same with Oracle. Oracle's gap fill obviously substantially lower at 240. Do I think it goes to 240? No, but I think there's an opportunity for a move to maybe 265 or so. So I don't expect my puts to get in the money, but I do between today and tomorrow have some kind of move that allows me to lock some in to cover costs or for some nice profits, and then ride the rest and see how it plays out. But that was Broadcom and Oracle. And then later in the day, I'm watching DocuSign. And DocuSign, similar to Reddit, is one of those names that people always talk about not having a moat around their business. And you can make a very easy bear case on DocuSign, right? So, I mean, it's not like it's curing cancer or doing anything that can't be duplicated, right? But it's just they're so entrenched in all the corporation, the businesses and things, the transactions, that it's very hard for them to get supplanted, you would think. But supposedly ChatGPT came out with some kind of update that they're eventually trying to go after that business. I don't know if that's the reason why it sold off, but it was down 10% plus in the afternoon with no headline, no downgrade, no catalyst I could see. So another name that you think would be impacted from that would be Adobe, and it was down like 1.5%. I'm like, here's a name. I pull up the chart, and I'm like, wow, this can go to 330 just on the chart basis without any kind of catalyst. So went and got those 337.50s. The funny thing is, I was trying to get the 337.50s. I think I had a bid for like 45 cents or somewhere in there, and then the market makers like upticked it. I got a small fill, and then a huge amount of volume went in higher. So didn't get as much as I wanted. To me, maybe that's a good sign that, hey, the market knows where it's headed. But I'll use a pull today to lock some in to cover costs. I'll ride the rest. But call me crazy. I think 330 comes on Adobe. So that's that. And then on the flip side here, still watching Duolingo. That one chopped around in the 320s all day yesterday. Kind of, doing what I was afraid it was going to do, just crushing premium. So, in one half, it stinks because you hate seeing premiums get crushed. But considering I don't have a position right now, it creates opportunity, right? So those 360s I had yesterday, those are 60 by 75. Well, not yesterday, but I closed out. So those are 50% lower than where I exited. So not saying I'm going to get that strike, but maybe the 355s if to find some a bid and the market reverses here today. I'll look for those. TKO, another name I was talking about since the start of the week. Thankfully, I didn't chase the calls on Monday when I was doing the rant on Monday afternoon. Closed down 1.5%, nothing crazy here, but upper Bollinger Band was it's 208.33, got to 208.48 yesterday, so maybe that might be some resistance. And then last but not least is Nike. And Nike I've been watching for the last couple of weeks to play for earnings. I thought at some point the turnaround is going to take hold. The stock's going to rocket. I mean, I think it's like 5 years of dead money on Nike. So if you've been long Nike for 5 years, it's been dead money. So after the close, I was looking at the premiums. The 80 strikes looked expensive on a risk reward basis. I didn't have high conviction that it was going to be a huge beat and raise. And then after the close, they reported a great quarter, a strong beat, but then their guidance was kind of light. They talked about tariff issues hitting the business for like $1.3 billion and hitting some of the margins like 1% somewhere in there. So not the ideal scenario for a turnaround, but maybe there's an opportunity for it to start to melt to $80. So I'm not going to trade it right at the open, but if it looks like it's going to start to melt past $75, I might look for some later dated strikes to play for that eventual move over 80. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.